Welcome to Late Reviews. Today's video is about Repo Man from 1984. Today I'm doing a short recommendation, a lazy recommendation, if you will, about a movie I just watched and I think it's worth talking about, or rather I think it's worth recommending. And I will therefore not spoil the movie for you, I'll just give a few thoughts about the movie and tell you why you should watch it. And of course this is breaking my format a bit, I tend to talk about franchises on this channel. But, well, sometimes I just find something that piques my interest, something that I think is worth talking about, and Repo Man just so happened to be one of them, so here is my lazy recommendation of Repo Man. And this movie opens up with a scene that reminded me a lot of the segment from Heavy Metal, where the taxi driver has this device that kills people, that obliterates people. In this movie, it is not in the back seat, it is in the trunk. So a police driver stops this guy outside of LA in the desert, and the police officer checks the trunk and is being evaporated, is being burned on the spot. It then cuts to our lead protagonist, the punk rocker Emilio Estevez, who is stocking up the groceries, stocking up the shelves in the supermarket with this guy who is, I think is described as the nerd. They don't really seem to be friends, he seems to be a bit of a dork. He doesn't really seem to be someone the Emilio Estevez character likes. But then in the following scene they're at this punk party and the dork is also there wearing a punk outfit. I don't know if they're related. At some point they are talking together in a later scene. So they do have a relationship outside of work, but I'm not exactly sure what it is. And if there's one thing this movie doesn't do, it really doesn't establish its universe or its relations that well. It's a bit all over the place. It's more focused on the idea and all these creative inputs it has, more so than a very coherent, deep narrative, which I think is completely acceptable because this movie has something else to give you. Anyway, Emilio Estevez quits his job, and on his way home, this very what's-his-face character, I think his surname is Stanton, I forgot his first name, but he's probably a guy you've seen in a lot of movies. He's normally a really, really cool guy in movies, and in this movie he does give a good performance as well. He drives up to him and asks him, hey, want to earn some money? And in doing so convinces him to steal a car, essentially, or to go into a car, drive it somewhere that turns out to be a repossession depot. So now he's done his first act as a Repo Man. And although reluctant, he soon realizes he needs the money as his parents, they squandered away all the money they have on this televangelist. And he therefore needs a job and decides to become a Repo Man and starts liking it. All the while, this other plot, maybe even the main plot of this car with this thing in the trunk, keeps driving around town and people want to get to it. And that's what I will say about the plot. I don't want to spoil more about it, but you do have these weird punks, really, really 80s punks, the worst kind of punks, doing drugs all the time, misbehaving, being violent, stealing, robbing. And you have Emilio Estevez dealing with his past and then deciding what future he wants for himself, because this is a movie set in a universe where everybody is a loser. Nobody really has a future. They live in the outskirts of outskirts in LA, right adjacent to the desert, right adjacent to nothing. They live in the last hospitable area before the desert, as far away as they can get from Hollywood, as far away as they can get from success. And it shows. Everybody here is just dealing with the fact that they have nothing. And it's not really expressed that well, but it is using that a lot for satire and for comedic elements, because yes, this is a black comedy. It is a black comedy with a lot of other elements, but it is overall a comedy. For example, the way that the parents, even though they live in something that looks like a glorified trailer, they have spent all the money on buying Bibles for supposedly being sent to El Salvador by this televangelist that, of course, he's probably just pocketing the money. This is the mid-80s. This is the height of Reagan, the height of do-it-yourself America, the height of, you can become anything, nobody's gonna support you along the way, the height of satanic panic, the hatred to the youth, to youth culture, the height, not necessarily the height, but the counterculture was very big. It has all this religious revivalism, televangelism that are essentially ruining people's lives because they convince them to give up their money to send to them instead. So it has a lot of these elements that it plays with, has government conspiracies, maybe it has a lot of these things that go on, who can you really trust? And even though everybody at this repo place, they hate each other, they're really quick to jump at each other's throats, even potentially to kill each other, just for the prospect of earning enough money Not a lot of money. The amount of money in this movie is it's $20,000. That was of course more back then, but we're not talking about millions. We're talking about people are willing in this movie to do a lot of terrible things for $20,000. It really tells you about what universe this movie is set in, and I think the way you should understand this movie before going into it is, as I said, it's not really a very coherent narrative. It has a lot of weird ideas, it has a lot of cool ideas, and it might feel like a mess. And it will feel really quirky and odd. And although this might give you a wrong impression of the movie, I would say I had slight David Lynch vibes from this movie. It's more a vibe than a story. It's more atmosphere than actual coherent narrative, though it does have a narrative. It's more exploring these people and what they do in different situations and exploring the society they live in and giving you a lot of quirky and funny moments along the way. And I don't think I want to say much more about the movie. I hope I piqued your interest in what I had to say. It has funny scenes, it has good performances. I was immersed from start to finish, even though it is by no means a perfect movie. I did not go away and had my mind blown. I just thought this is a very odd movie and a very interesting movie that I would recommend you to see if you haven't seen it already. It might even be a cult classic. I think it is a word that is sometimes thrown around too much and without being justified, but it does feel special. Not that there are no other movies that are like this. As I said, it did remind me a bit of David Lynch. It reminded me of some other things. There are movies like it around, but it does feel quite unique and interesting nonetheless. And on a final note, one of the punks is played by a guy called Dick Rude, which is a nice name. That's a good name for a punk, Dick Rude. It would of course be called better with him called Rude Dick, but you can't have everything, now can you? But that was it for me. Hope you enjoyed this very, very, very quick, lazy recommendation of a movie that I hope you will enjoy as much as I did. See you!
Hey, look at that. Look at those assholes over there. Ordinary fucking people. I hate them.